Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading Ep5. England, with a hard-fought win in terrible conditions at Murrayfield, means they're right back in this championship. But what will the sausages say? You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2023. Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a slightly late episode, but we've got a week off, so we thought let's spread it out. You don't want to hear too much from us, but we've got to talk about the game against Scotland up in Edinburgh, the Calcutta Cup, and of course joining me to do that, as always, is Dan. Hi, mate.
Hello, mate. Well, not the best looking of games ever, but it was our first win since the World Cup final. So I think that is really important.
Since the World Cup semi-final.
Since the World Cup semi-final, shit, yeah. But maybe I'm rewriting history here.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how I wish it went since the World Cup semi-final. So it's I mean, it wasn't a classic, was it?
No, I mean, look, perhaps we were all underestimating. There was obviously a lot of chat about the conditions. We were all underestimating the impact it was going to have. It was one of those games where, in the moment, it was really frustrating because you just kind of expect these guys to be able to do everything right. And having got a result, the result gone the way that we wanted it to, and had a chance to sort of digest and look back on it. Actually, my opinion of the game has changed quite a bit. In the moment, I was really frustrated. All the kicking was sort of winding me up. But actually, you watched the post-match interviews with various players as well as with Eddie, and they had a game plan, and it was a game plan that worked. It might have seemed a bit risky given how close the game ended up, but they didn't want the ball. And in those conditions, they made it very clear that you were better off without the ball, which is a weird thing to say, I think, because at the end of the day, you've got to score points to win, and you need the ball to score points. But there were a lot of positives in a game that, as you say, was kind of pretty out there. It wasn't a classic. What did you think? I mean, it was a kicking game.
It had to be. So the first thing, I knew it was going to be a really shit game when I was watching the build-up, and Jerry Guscott said he thought there'd be a load of tries, and I was like, oh, God, that means there's going to be none. Don't get me wrong. Jerry Guscott as a player was absolutely immense. He could not predict things worse on BBC. Like, whatever he says isn't going to happen. So when he's like, England are going to win easily, I'm always like, shit. But what I thought, so my thoughts of the game, the first half, I thought we were brilliant. We were playing into a really strong win. We got to remember, obviously not quite on the same level, but we've all played in those games where the conditions are so bad that it becomes almost impossible to play any level of rugby. So first half, I thought we did a brilliant job, and I was really happy going into half time.
Yeah, I agree.
Because coming second half, I thought win with us. Second half, same as you. I get why we played that way, and nothing against it. Well done, guys. Great win. But there were frustrations. I think when you kick out on the full a few times, it's so hard to judge that win. So I'm not going to have a massive go at them. But how the try came, well done, guys. But I was so annoyed we didn't run that. I'd like to have seen us just run a little bit more in the second half.
I don't understand, Dan, why we have one of the quickest, if not the quickest winger in world rugby.
Yeah.
Why didn't we at least try out what it's like to put him with wind at his back? At least give it a go. Just see what happens. We tried all sorts of other things. Why not try that one? It was a bit frustrating that we didn't get to see them attempt to let Johnny cause some problems. I agree with you. I get the kicking game. I don't really know why they were going for such tight kicks. Willie Hines two or three in a row, I think, where he tried to shove it down the touchline, but he wasn't going for touch. So it's like, if you're not going to go for touch and the wind is so unpredictable, why not just shove it down the middle? I mean, the try eventually came from a kick down the middle.
Yeah,
the most important. The kicking game was about territory. It was about pushing them back into their own half as often as possible and put them under pressure. Great. There's no need for that to happen on the edge of the field. I also thought that Scotland when Scotland captain fullback Stuart Hogg. There was one moment where Stuart Hogg caught the ball deep and he dummied the kick and then he ran it. And then he kicked it, but he gained probably 20 yards in the counter attack because it was 1-on-1 and he's quick, and then he was able to shove it along the ground into touch, and he made far more ground than he ever would have done booting it from his own 22. I feel like that should have been like a little message to go, oh, that works, we should try that. But actually, more importantly than any of that, the line out was obviously massively affected too. No blame on the hookers. Because clearly, even if you threw it straight, it was still going nowhere near straight, and the referee has no choice. He can't say, "Oh, it was the wind. I'm going to let you get away with it." So unfortunately, there was a lot of those. It did make me think at times. You're kicking to touch in order to win a line out, in order to win the ball back, in order to have a go. Why not just tap and go?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you get momentum going forward, so I agree with that. As it turns out, we were winning. We were getting a lot more line outs and
it improved massively. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? Like, what is the why are professional teams averse? And there might be a good explanation for this, but why are they averse to the old school, tap and go, or line the forwards up, and do a little sort of American football style little move, but just literally tap, go, give it to one of the big boys, have two or three of them go in together, and immediately you're in the same boat as if they picked from the back of the ruck and went.
Yeah, I miss that, and then those are the days where, and this was something else because, I mean, how much could we have predicted that weather? I think it was known, but nothing's definite, is it, weather-wise? But those are the days where you kind of want your fatties. You're carrying, like you say, the old school, like underage type rugby. You give it to the fat kid and just run hard. So I think we were missing that. And that's hard to know because I guess if you train with a team in a week, you don't expect quite those atrocious conditions. Mm. But I think the game plan was if we just constantly play in their 22 or as near to that as we can, eventually something's going to come our way. And it did. So that's lucky. I am glad that Stuart Hogg, when he sort of fumbled, and I think it was Farrell who put it down, I am glad that wasn't a try. I'm only glad now because we got a try straight after, because I like Stuart Hogg, and I think it would have just been... He's been given a lot of criticism for that. I think that's harsh. Firstly, he didn't actually do anything wrong because he got the ball down.
I'd have liked a few more looks at it, if I'm honest. I know that you don't have to don't have to use downward pressure with your hands to touch the ball down over your own line, but I'd have liked to have seen whether or not he actually touched the ball down in goal.
Oh, I thought he did, but because he's defending, I think he did with his midriff. So
yeah, but what I mean is I'm not convinced that the ball was grounded in goal. But anyway...
Oh, okay. I thought it had. But either way, we got the try next. Well done, Ellis Genge.
Yeah.
Mate, like you say, it was one of those games where we were deserved winners of that. I said after the match, I was chatting to a mate, and I was like, I thought the referee had a great game. And then it was pointed out to me, I probably thought that because the decisions did seem to go our way. But, that's how I want the referees to reffing.
That is good refereeing.
Yeah, that is brilliant refereeing. So I don't get what his point was.
Let me ask you, Dan, a game like that.
Yeah.
You in particular are a big advocate for take the points.
Yes.
When the wind is having that much of an effect, and you look at the Farrell, I mean, at one point he was 1 from 4, I think.
Yeah.
And he was striking the ball well, so it wasn't like he was miss-kicking. He was striking the ball well, but the wind just obviously taking over. Would you say that that's a good time to say, do you know what, actually, stick it in touch, because the kind of the chance of a successful kick is so slim? Or would you stick to your take the points and sure, he didn't get them all, but eventually he got them and they made the difference?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, like you say, it's going to be such a low scoring game that you kind of think take like an opportunity. I think there you weigh up where there are, even if it's fairly dead in front, even if it's 50-50, I think you have a go at post where you're starting getting where even if you're well within range, but you're right in a corner where even the best kickers in the world with that wing can't do it. I think maybe then, all right, let's go for the corner because 8 times out of 10 might be missing. I don't know the statistics. But then I think you've got more flexibility not to take the points in that situation. But I still think on the whole, that should be the instinct. This is just obviously my thought because it's going to be such a low-scoring game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's a no-brainer, obviously, if you're in front of the posts, wind or not, you know you're going to get it 99 times out of 100, then of course, take your points. The normal rules apply. But when you're out on the edges, when you're looking at a 40-metre kick in that kind of wind, I don't know, I just think that he took one, he saw how much the wind affected it. It wasn't a bad kick. I think you have, in that situation, you have to be able to say, the next opportunity isn't about trying to make up for the missed one because it was a decent kick. The conditions are just dictating that actually, you'd be better off going for the corner. And Scotland did. And okay, England's defence kept them out, and that's great. And maybe we got a bit lucky, and particularly with that Sinclair turnover / illegal handling of the ball in the ruck. And obviously the Scottish fans and the Scottish pundits are all kind of saying, well, Scotland might have scored then. Yeah, they might have done, they might not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's frustrating, and we'd have been pretty annoyed if it was the other way around. But they were a bit more aggressive in that respect. They took their points when they needed them. They took their points when they knew they were going to get them.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they gave themselves, the opportunity to maintain possession. When territory dictated that was the most important thing for them to have. So, I'd like to have seen a little bit more of that. At times it felt a little bit too much like, well, this is what we always do, so we're going to do it again. But generally, I thought they controlled the game really well. They always looked the better team, England.
Yeah, I thought so.
As you say, it was a great first half, and I was a bit surprised. I thought we were going to see more. I really expected the kicking game pinned back Scotland and prevented them from getting on the scoreboard in the first half. I really thought that the second half we were going to open up and score a few tries. But in my head, I was thinking win behind Johnny Lightning May.
Yeah,
and it's a shame that never happened. I mentioned last week we were talking about Elliot Daly at fullback, and I was talking about his kick chase. There was an interesting stat that I read. Well, not an interesting stat at all, but I was reading the post match kind of review of the individuals, and the write up on Elliot Daly was, he had a good game, did a lot of kick chasing, and didn't manage to win any ball. But he was always there or thereabouts.
I mean, he's chasing kicks, isn't he? Like he's putting pressure on it.
Do we want more though? Do we want maybe this game it wasn't about trying to win the ball back? But I kind of think that in this day and age and at this level, you always want to give yourself a chance, and the best teams do. The best teams make life difficult for you because they always give themselves a chance to win the ball back. Which is, that's far better pressure than simply there's a guy running at me who's going to jump in the air. I don't know. I don't know whether it's that the kicks are just going that 5 yards too long and he's not able to get there in time, or if he's just maybe just slightly undercommitted. So when he does get there, he's not actually trying to retrieve the ball. He's just trying to make a nuisance of himself. And I just think that's dangerous because, with the quality of opposition that exists and the potential for counter-attack, you might be able to make a nuisance of yourself. But if that nuisance results in you giving the ball to one of their quickies, in a really strong position, it can end up being a real negative.
Yeah, it could, but to play devil's advocate here, in those conditions on that day, maybe you didn't want to try and catch it because otherwise you're the one ending up knocking it on. Whereas if you're putting pressure...
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of my question is do we think that's what was going on there? Do you think it was literally just a case of we don't want the ball at all, except when we know we're going to get a penalty? We just want to put them under pressure and make them make mistakes, and we'll just keep grinding it down, and then every now and then opportunities will come, and that's when we'll take them.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, one thing we've got to say, England clearly had a game plan, and the game plan worked. We won the game. We won the game away at Murrayfield in atrocious conditions, and we've got that W on the board. So it's hard to criticise them. It's hard to be, as Ellis Genge would say, it's hard to be a sausage. But I think we're probably the king of sausages. But
what are you talking about?
I think we say some weird stuff.
Yeah, but we sausages are the ones that tell that say that they can't play rugby anymore.
Oh, so we're steak then.
Exactly.
Yeah,
prime fillet. That's what we are.
All right, we're the fillet steaks. Nice.
It was a weird one. It was kind of like it was a relief, as you say, to get the W. But it was kind of frustrating to watch because obviously we wanted to see a performance after what happened in France. I feel a bit sorry for Scotland, not that sorry, but a little bit, because it was such because both England and Scotland lost their openers. That was a must-win game for both teams. The one that lost that, Six Nations, is over. Obviously, there's still 3 games to go, but any chance of competing, for the title is gone. And for them, that's now the case. And I think England. I think in good conditions, I think England would have won the game convincingly. I think they're the better side, but I don't think that game really shone any light on the quality. I don't think you can take much from it, and I don't think they'll be doing too much analysis of that game in terms of prepping for Ireland in 10 days' time.
Yeah, I agree. You can't.
Or a week's time, in fact.
Yeah, just over a week. Yeah, you can't account for that. So, like I say, I do feel a bit sorry for Scotland because now, Scotland are out, fine, they've got Italy next and they'll get the W on the board. But, England are really right back in this. The only team... Ireland have won 2, haven't they?
Ireland and Wales... Ireland have won 2. Wales have won 1. England have won 1. France
so if Wales
beat
France and we beat Ireland, there's 4 teams that have won 2, lost 1. That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
that would be really good.
And then we'll have Wales. What we want is probably France to beat Wales, us to beat Ireland, so that us and Ireland are.
No, I want Wales to beat France.
Us and Ireland have played 2, won 1.
What?
So, no, played 3, lost 1. France played 3, won 3. Then Ireland beat France.
Ireland and Scotland beat France. I'd quite like all 4 teams to be played 3, won 2. I'd quite like that. It makes it really interesting. Do you remember? I can't remember. I don't know, sort of probably about 4 years ago now. When on that last day, when Wales destroyed Italy and it was going to end, then Ireland destroyed Scotland, and then we had to beat France. I think it was by loads, and we almost did it. I think
we needed to beat France by 30 odd, and we managed to put 55 on them, but we also conceded about 40.
Yeah. Well, I think we were only a try away. Actually, I think
it was close, but it was. There was a lot of points scored that day.
There's a hell of a lot
that would
of
be a good weekend. Although we've obviously got Italy in our final game, so it's a bit less. I don't know. There's something nice about having a big game for your final one. And I don't obviously want to jinx anything, but Italy are just not looking good at the moment, and so they are the whipping boys once again, and it becomes a question of by how much. So we want to make sure we're in a strong position going into that game, and I guess that's not a bad place to be if it's going to come down to points difference.
Yes, it is.
If you've got to max out your points difference, then Italy's the game you want to do it in. You don't want to be going up against Ireland or France or someone knowing you've got to find an additional 30.
It's completely right. We've actually got we've got Ireland and Wales next. They're 2 toughies. We've got 2 toughies,
but at HQ, both with a week off in between. I think England would have a good opportunity to be in a good place with this one. Obviously, Ireland's record against England not looked good in recent times.
No,
I think we destroyed them. We've destroyed them at HQ and in Dublin, and then again in the World Cup warm up, didn't we? Both in Dublin and at HQ again.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know last Six Nations, that was a great win. and that was in Dublin, obviously. So I can't remember before that. In World Cup Warnock, we beat them well. I think I heard, so I can't remember where I heard this, but someone was saying, I couldn't agree more. I think it does quite largely depend on what team we pick. Because Ireland...
We'll focus on all of that in our build up to the Ireland game, but you're right. I mean, I don't think he's going to make a huge number of changes. I mean, again, difficult to take too much from that game. But did you? You know, one of our big concerns was obviously at 8. Did you feel that Tom Curry? To me, he looked a little bit more 8ish.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game.
A few little pick and goes from the back. He seemed bigger.
It's so hard because in that game, do you want a fatty ball carrier? But that wasn't our game plan. So actually, maybe you do want a scrapper, a Tom Curry. So it's hard to know. Yeah, I thought Tom Curry had a good game. If Billy, say for, God forbid, but say Billy had a really long-term injury or something and just couldn't play for England, I don't think Curry's the answer at 8 instead of Billy. So I think we need to look there. I mean, Eddie may think otherwise. I personally don't think he's the answer to 8 when Billy's not there. I think there's another answer.
Do you think, though, he's banking on Billy coming back? Like, what do you think? Do you think his plans would change if he knew Billy wasn't? Yeah, if he knew Billy wasn't coming back.
Yeah, I don't know, and that's what concerns me, because I think it worked so well, like the Cundihill with Billy. That works so well. Awesome. But the problem is you can't replace Billy. So do you? It is so hard. Do you try and replace him with a slightly lesser version, like the Billy's like the Billy 2.0? So do you replace him with a Billy minus 2.0, or do you change the whole dynamics of the back row? And Eddie's gone for the whole dynamics. I personally would like to see a ball carrying 8, like a very. I think Curry gives it a go. And I don't think he's bad at it at all. But he's not a Billy. He's not a Sam Simmons to me. He's not a Don Brandt. But they lack a lot of the stuff that Curry does have. So I still want to see Curry Underhill at 6 and 7. Although I thought Ludlam was really good.
Yeah, he was. I mean, interestingly, so we had a message from Andy from Newcastle, who says Amal Catering, I think is his.
We've heard from him before.
We have heard from him before. He says, "Hi lads, great to see you guys back and looking forward to your future pods. Listening to your last couple of discussions about not having cover for Billy at number 8 on this and other less interesting pods, why do you think that Don Brandt is getting so much coverage when Mark Wilson, World Cup finalist, may I add, is not even getting a mention, even though he is back fit? Surely he must be back in the mix for the last 3 games, and then it's problem solved. Curry, Underhill, Wilson." I would say, firstly, Mark Wilson isn't an 8. He might be able to play there. He might have played there before, but like the situation we have at the moment, for England, he's been a 6.
Yeah, he's played 8 for England before.
But he has got more experience there, and so I agree. I think Curry, Underhill, Wilson would be a decent back 3.
That is so hard. That is so tough.
I think the reason he's not really being mentioned is because everyone knows what he's capable of. He's already in the mix, but he's been injured and only just back from injury.
Yeah, I think you're replacing, if you bring him in, I think you're replacing sort of like for like with Curry.
But the Don Brandt thing, it's because Wilson was unavailable and Billy was unavailable and Don Brandt's been playing so well. So I think, to answer your question, I think the reason why everyone's talking about Don Brandt isn't because they've forgotten about Mark Wilson. I think it's simply that we need a permanent option at 8. It's no good saying Billy's our man, and when he's not about, we'll try something different. And it might be that's what Eddie's looking to do with Curry, is develop him. And who knows? Maybe he'll turn out to be an awesome number 8, and everyone will be talking about him as a number 8 in the years to come. But I'm not convinced.
That could be. Eddie has a very keen eye, so I'm not ruling out Eddie's judgment just yet on this. But I'm with you. I'd like to see another option now. I'd like to see another solution, because it's so hard, because all the players there are such quality players that I don't want to be here like, we're screwed without them, because that's just not the case. Because even if we have Curry 8, we've still got a great player.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's what we've said in the past. It's not that he's not. It's not that he's not good on the pitch when he's playing 8. It's that he's not as effective as he could be if he was playing 6.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the same with Wilson. It's not that he can't play 8 and play 8 well. It's that, to me, Wilson's a finisher. So my ideal would be, say Billy's out the mix, my ideal right now would be Curran Underhill at 6 and 7, however they want to go. Don Brandt to 8 and Wilson on the bench, because Wilson can cover all 3. That's how I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout. And Ludlam's just unlucky.
Yeah, I think Ludlam just missed out, but him and Wilson sort of fighting out for that 6 spot.
Keeping pressure on. Yeah. I don't disagree. I think that would be an interesting one. And actually, Don Brandt would then probably be the unfortunate sort of player that would miss out when Billy's back, depending on how he goes. I'm not a massive fan of constantly having Laws covering the back row. I think he's so much better when he's in the second row.
I don't think he's an international back row. I think at Premiership level he can play it and he can have big impact. I think he can do a good job at international level, but I don't think he can have the big impact there. And that's not him. I don't think any of our second row can, and we've got the best second row in the world.
But it's the same issue that we've got with having Curry at 8, isn't it? We're saying the same thing. He's a great player. Exactly. He's good to have on the pitch, but you want him in his prime position. There's no point in going, we've got 15 world-class players, if we did have. But they're all playing out of position, because you're not going to have a great team. Just because the individuals are good at doing other things. I think that's a good shout. I think Wilson in the mix, but also it doesn't mean you have to. You don't have to have Wilson or Don Brandt. You have the pair of them. And even if you wanted to go the other way, even if you wanted to go with experience, Wilson starts, Don Brandt comes on for a bit of impact. I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, that's okay. What do you think? Speaking of world-class players, what do you reckon about this? This is a stretch saying speaking about world-class players, but what do you reckon thinking about the RFU slashing funding for the championship, which a lot of England players have come through that route? Have you seen that?
I saw the headline. I haven't explored it yet.
So the RFU,
you tell me what you think.
So the RFU, basically, they gave, I can't remember exact figures, but I think it's about 550 grand a year to all championship sides.
Right.
They're now half the amount they're giving to championship sides. So I think it's about 280. They're more than half it. So, and they're saying it's because the championship haven't met the criteria set in place for them, etc., etc. But it's my worry with this. Two things. Firstly, there's an argument to me. The argument that it could be a good thing is the championship won't be able to afford to buy players, so may need to rent a lot more from Premiership clubs, which means that a lot of England fringe players might get more game time. But my two concerns about it, firstly, we want 2 good tiers. I think if you have 2 good tiers, it makes it better. And secondly, it says to me that they might well be looking to ring fence the Premiership. I really don't want to see that. Even this season, because we know Saracens have been relegated, the Premiership is less interesting to me now.
Yeah.
I think having relegation makes it so much more interesting than competition.
I agree. 100%. It's you end up with teams just sort of not really caring. Yeah, they have a 5-year plan rather than a season plan. Yeah,
exactly. If suddenly even after a quarter of a season, if you're bottom of the league, even if you're quite a good team, you're bottom of the league after a quarter of the season, you're thinking, realistically, we can't make top 4 now. Let's just chill out the rest of the season, use it as a train. There's no incentive there. And people could say, oh, well, get into Europe and things. But it's not quite the same as, whereas if after a quarter of the season, you're bottom of the league, you're like, oh, shit, we need to pick our game up, otherwise we're going down. Like Leicester must have been thinking that. That makes it so interesting.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
So
I don't know
I
if I hope that's not what they're going to do. I guess the big question is, where's the rest of that money going to go?
Well, apparently it's going, and I'm not saying it's bad. Apparently they did say it's going to go to like grassroots or community rugby or whatever. Not necessarily grassroots, but community rugby.
But maybe there's value in that.
Maybe.
Rather than saying because let's be honest, you're just the RFU at the moment is putting that money into paying players.
Yes, it is putting that money into paying players.
Whereas by taking some of that away and putting it into grassroots, it's putting it into creating opportunities for more people to get into rugby, for more people to play more rugby, for more people to be able to train and get better. And long term, is there actually more value in saying, look, we're not just going to let you pay more money for your players. We're going to try and make sure that more players are coming along, who can be picked for these teams. And
yeah, because a lot of that money is probably going towards paying non-English qualified players as well, which great. It's good to have a thing, but actually, if we're looking at it from England's point of view, then yeah, you're right. Maybe there is benefit to that, but I don't think they've completely defined where it's going, or if they have, I haven't seen that.
Pockets of the board.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of the new Jags for the.
Yeah, we need a new set of Jaguars for the for the board members. England Jag 1 and England Jag 2. And...
actually, I'm starting to buy into that.
Yeah, it's nice idea. Sweet. I don't think there's much more we can really.
You mentioned to me something about Ellis Genge?
Oh yeah, we should definitely talk about Ellis Genge. In fact, there's a couple. I've just thought of something else as well. So first, before we go to Ellis Genge, talk to me about Murrayfield and just the lack of silence during kicking and just the whole atmosphere. For so long, rugby's been one of those sports that's great because you can go and sit in the middle of the away stand, so to speak, and it's just as much fun. It's banter. It's starting to feel like one of those sports where you got to keep yourself to yourself because you start mixing in and it just all gets a bit too abusive.
It's a tough one, this. So there's a few things. Firstly, we've got to bear in mind, like, it's England, Scotland, the emotions tend to be a bit higher anyway. Not that that's an excuse. Second thing, it was such a poor game that the crowd are a bit bored. I'm not saying this is an excuse, but I still want to see. It's so hard because you can't have both ways. Like, I still want to see, like, yes, respect the kicker, and I still completely agree with that. But you do want. There's such chat about, it's such an intimidating atmosphere. And it makes a build-up to a match quite interesting, like people saying going to Wales and, going to Cardiff and things.
Yeah, but you do that. I mean, there's plenty of noise, that's all well and good. But, when you've got clips of Scotland fans just, showing England players the wanker sign and, shouting, fuck you and fuck this.
Oh,
and you're just like, that. You're in the wrong, it's the wrong sport, mate.
Yeah,
what are you doing? Like, fair enough, give them some abuse, but it should be banter. It shouldn't just be unnecessary aggression, because ultimately that spills out in other ways. And you want to be able to. Rugby is one of those games you want to be able to take your kids to. The few Premiership football matches that I've been to where we weren't fortunate enough to be with Tim, it just wasn't fun.
Yeah, and no, I agree with that. And I mean, I guess the thing to say to those fans who are doing that is, fuck you, you're wankers.
How do you stamp it out? I'm reading bullshit about from Scottish fans saying, "Oh no, it's people weren't booing him throughout the entire kick. It was only because he was taking too long." No, they started booing the minute he said he was going for posts, and the booing just got louder right up until the point he struck the ball in the hope of putting him off.
Yeah,
it's just wrong.
I do agree. There's a fine line. I don't know exactly where those lines is, but yeah, doing them like wank signs, that sort of abuse, it's a bit pathetic. But it's hard to know. It's hard to know. You want there to be great atmosphere. Yeah. It's such a fine line, isn't it? Because
I hope that Twickenham isn't like that for the next two, because my experiences of it, are that for the most part people do respect the kicker on both sides.
And you should respect the kicker, because I mean, as much as anything, if they've earned a penalty and they're going for post, I don't think it puts off the kicker.
I was going to say the irony is that if you are wanting to put the kicker off, deathly silence is probably far more effective.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a lot harder to do.
80,000 people and you can hear a pin drop and they're all watching you take your kick. That's more pressure than if they're all screaming and you just get into your zone and do your thing. It's not that I think that it was off-putting for Farrell, but it's just a bit sad. But anyway, such is the way things are going, Dan. Let's just hope that it can turn a corner. There's been some chat. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last episode or if I just mentioned it to you when we were talking, but there's been a lot of chat about South Africa joining the Six Nations after the next World Cup, and it's had a fairly mixed response.
No, I don't want it.
What's your kind of reason for?
Well, so my reason for it, I don't want there to be more teams. I think the Six Nations is really good as it is, and I think the point of Six Nations is it's a Northern Hemisphere one.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that there's the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere thing. This is just my personal opinion.
Would it not be good to get more exposure to the Southern Hemisphere teams? If every year you get to play.
Well, I think you've got the autumn internationals and the tours each summer. I don't think you need it. I don't think it's the days of old where you never played them. I still think we play them enough. And there's the summer tours. No, I don't. I mean, there's part of me that, that'd be good. But it wouldn't. Part of the Six Nations for me is the history of it, like the great rivalries.
Well, of course, it was a 4 nations, then a 5 nations, then a 6 nations.
Then a 6 nations. And I don't think it should be bigger. And I think, from a fan's point of view, I think the fact that you've got Italy having joined, there isn't that history there. There isn't that side of it, which in actual fact probably does maybe take something away from it. But then, like all the fans say, like a trip to Rome and things, it's close, it's near.
You're not popping over to Johannesburg or Cape Town.
I'm saying no.
Fair enough. But I don't disagree with you. I was just putting it out there just for discussion purposes.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think
I think I agree with you. I think it's. I wouldn't take great issue with playing South Africa every year in the Six Nations, but I agree. I think it's a shame when it's not close enough that you can just pop over for the weekend if that's what you want to do. Because I think that's one of the great things about the Six Nations is that you can tour around all these different countries without having to to jet off and spend 10 hours in the air and. It's just too expensive, and flying to South Africa is one of the most expensive places to go anyway. So, it would end up being all of South Africa's home games would just be South Africans in the, with the odd English person living out there, and vice versa over here. Although half of Earlsfield would be at Twickenham.
Games. I saw Wimbledon, all that. But also, I think so for me, especially with like Lions tour coming up to South Africa. I think it would take away a bit of the mystique. I quite like that, true. Having that stuff, and suddenly like.
I guess from their point of view, they're just thinking that it's the time zone issue, isn't it? But that's their problem.
Well, no, is it because South Africa's only like an hour or so ahead, isn't it?
For us, but to go over to New Zealand and Australia.
I get them, but
it's their problem. It's their problem, Dan. Let them sort it out.
Or they can do an African Cup of Nations,
nice,
or whatever.
That probably already exists. They can just join it and just win every year.
Yeah,
feel good about themselves.
Stop messing with our Six Nations. Yeah,
indeed. So Ellis Genge, I take it you saw his interview. I'm sure everyone has now seen the interview. Mixed, mainly positive, but a little bit of a mixed reaction to that. Some people saying that it was wrong the way that he was and having a beer in his hand, all that kind of stuff. Personally, I'm on the other in the other camp. I think it was awesome. I think it just highlights how normal a bloke he is. And for the people saying he should take a leaf out of Ben Young's book, Ben Young's has nearly 100 caps and he went to private school. Ellis Genge grew up on one of the roughest estates in Bristol, and he's relatively new to the England team. He also scored the try that won the game, and he's the baby rhino. So I thought it was awesome. I thought it was so kind of real.
Well, that's it. I don't want suddenly players not being able to say how they feel. And after the game, even like the Ben Young's thing in South Africa, where he went like, sorry off. Do you know what? That I prefer to see the real side of them. What does everyone want? Do they want a typical interview where they say what their media trained to say, like, it's about the team, we put in a good performance, we got lots to build on for next week?
That's what you want from the captain. Because captain's speaking on behalf of everyone. But if you're going to go and interview Ellis Genge while he's getting changed,
I want him to be like, get me a bit.
He's going to point out a few sausages.
He's going to point out a few sausages. And for those who have an issue with him drinking a beer doing it, just get over it.
It's rugby. It's beer and rugby are kind of part of the same thing.
Well, I'd say it'd be the same with
I read some tweet from some guy saying, absolutely astonished. My kids were absolutely astonished that a professional rugby player drinks a beer after the game. I thought, your kids don't know what rugby is, mate.
Yeah, your kids probably weren't astonished. Your kids were probably fine with it. You're probably astonished, and you probably need to grow a pair. But...
Never played the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Played all your best rugby from an armchair.
And yeah, I don't understand why people have an issue with someone having a beer.
It's bizarre.
The fact we've got to that point and people are saying that, I'm like, oh yeah. No.
Well, it's because it's England, isn't it?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it.
Awesome.
I like the fact
very real.
Yeah.
I want to end this episode, Dan, with reading out a quote from. So I think it was a. I don't know if it was a post-match report or if it was just an article written by Welsh referee. God, I'm having a problem with names today. Nigel Owens. Nigel Owens, and to all our Welsh listeners, well, I say all, there's probably not that many, those of you that tune in, mainly when you think you're going to be listening to us explaining a loss. Nigel Owens, Welshman, says, I know some people out there seem to think England are arrogant. I know Welsh fans love to hate them, although it must be stressed that's very much in terms of traditional rugby rivalry only. But I've obviously got to know the England squad and management over the years, and I can tell you they are amongst the most down-to-earth, decent people you could wish to meet. I have a huge amount of respect for them, as I do for every team and player, all the teams and players that I've officiated. Indeed, very few would not be on my Christmas card list. There was no need for Owen Farrell's gesture, but it showed him to be the likeable individual that he is.
Good.
We knew it.
Yeah.
But now you've heard it from the mouth of a Welshman.
Yes, exactly. So everyone get off England's back. Just
exactly. If Nigel Owens can see it,
or do one. Yeah.
Dan, we've squeezed out an episode from what was a pretty ropey game of rugby.
We needed to. We won.
We got the W. Bigger and better things to come. And I think that hidden away amongst all goings on of last Saturday, I think there were some positives, and I'm confident that back at HQ, without it blowing a hurricane, I think we're going to see England just starting to turn things around. I think as much as they say it wasn't, I think World Cup fatigue did exist, and I know other people will say, well, all the teams had that. Well, no, all the other teams had more time off because they went home earlier. So yeah, I think the second half against South Africa, against France, it just started to come good. We had a slightly weird one against Scotland, but we got what was needed out of it. Ireland and Wales, watch out. Yes, completely. And if anyone from the Six Nations scheduling is listening, please stop putting England games on Sundays, you lemons. They're much better on a Saturday. Those sausages, you sausages. I much prefer a Saturday game. That's because you like a beer, mate.
It is. Yeah, I should go down with Ellis Gens.
Yeah. Not sure he'd want to do that with you. I'm honest.
I'm pretty sure I'm the last person he wants to have a beer with, but
On that note,
Ellis, come here.
On that note, guys, we're gonna leave it there. We will be back. We'll have an episode early next week mid next week sometime. I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. We'll shuffle things around, but there will be at least one more before the Ireland game. Maybe we'll do an extra one. Have a look back at Ireland's performances so far and see if we can identify some areas that England can target. So we'll be back, but one way or another, we'll be back with you next week, and bigger and better things to come. So please make sure you tune in, and if you haven't already, subscribe, because that way you'll get all the episodes, and you won't be inundated because this year we're just going to be doing the tournaments, so you'll only be getting the episodes when there's rugger bugger going on. Guys, rate and review us if you get the opportunity. Let us know what you think. If you've got any questions, get in touch. Ask those questions, because it's always useful to have something to kind of guide the episodes and lead us. We will be back and catch up with you next time.
Thanks, guys.